Today, we welcome to the program Dr. Elizabeth Landsverk, who's a dementia and Alzheimer's disease expert, a geriatrician as well. Dr. Liz, it's so great having you on. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to teach about dementia.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, let's start. I think at this point, the two major presidential candidates, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, have seen a number of very confident and boisterous allegations made about their cognition and their state of mind. We talked about a literal brain worm that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Experienced in the early 2010s as well, and maybe you'll have something to say about him. Can you give us just like a brief overview about when we are looking at individuals who we know mostly through media, television, audio, what is it you look for? What is it we can and cannot glean necessarily?
Well, it's a huge topic. I'll try and be brief. When we're talking about, does someone have capacity for an intervention? The question is, what is it? As a geriatrician, often I get asked, do they have financial capacity, in relation to someone who's maybe financially abused, or do they have medical capacity, or can they sign a will? So if you only understand, what assets you have, your house, and who you'd like them to go to, that's called testamentary. Cool. Medical, you have to understand the medical interventions, like, you have an infection in your leg, they want to cut it off. That means you're going to be in the hospital for a while and you're not going to be able to walk on it. Can you repeat that back? The financial is most complicated because you have to understand abstract concepts and reasoning. And basically, I'm taking this as an opportunity to talk to, the home audience. And when I have someone who is acting strangely and isn't taking care of their bills, or they're getting more angry than they used to, or they're just, their personality seems different, then I ask the families to have the person draw a clock, have it say 11:10, and have them calculate 25% of $22.50. Seems really simple, but our society is so conditioned that if you sound socially okay, we think you're okay.
Mm.
And I've had a number of patients where one gentleman was very successful businessman, but he drank too much and he was getting a divorce. And I could see he wasn't eating. He couldn't take care of the house. He couldn't get groceries. He needed the care. And the lawyer said, well, you can't have that care because, of the divorce settlement. And so they hadn't recognized he had the dementia, needed the help. And so I said, nope, you've got to make sure that you've, got care for him. This happens all the time. So I'm not going to, point out and say Trump or Biden or RFK has got dementia. I'm going to say what I look for. I look at function. And first I hear a lot about, Trump got Obama and Biden confused. He got Pelosi and Haley confused. Those are fairly serious because these are the people that, this is his job, is to run for president. And Biden got confused about Mitterrand and Cole. Those are old age changes, where you get the names wrong. What I often look for is, the other bit that I remember hearing about is that Trump was talking about Gettysburg, and he didn't really understand, what the Battle of Gettysburg was for.
Yeah,
And
let me remind the audience on that. It was sort of a seeming non sequitur about Gettysburg, laced with superlatives and hyperbole about, wow, what
horrible, it
about
was
Gettysburg,
beautiful.
sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. And so you want the president to be able to understand complex international situations and be able to be very focused on what's the best thing to do for America. That said, I think that, Biden has made some stumbles. He's not the most dynamic person around. He never has been. I look at the function of his programs, that they've brought back manufacturing, that brought NATO together, that they are, working to protect Ukraine. He's looking, the Middle East is extremely complicated, and Hamas, who got money from Russia, attacked Israel and took hostages and killed 1,100 on October 7th, which is Putin's birthday. So there's a lot of really complicated movements. And what I see the team doing is trying to connect with all the players and the Middle Eastern um, leaders and keep the war from spreading.
So
And so far,
other experts have generically said, as you're sort of pointing out, that some of the things that are publicly noticeable about Trump are more concerning to them when it comes to capacity than what they are seeing from Biden. Generally, do you agree with that or not so much?
well, so the things that concern me are not understanding, the context of a historical event like Gettysburg, but also when he was under deposition. So what I look for is function. So depositions are great, as opposed to, I guess he was noted to have 30,000 lies. So when he has a rally, whatever he says may or may not be true. So there's one kind of dementia related with alcoholism that's not for him. It's got confabulation where you just make stuff up. But he was in his deposition and they asked him if he had any medications or any reason he couldn't answer the questions that day. And he said no. And I've been in depositions as an expert witness, and I know the lawyers go through step by step exactly what you're supposed to say. And right in front of him, he had this, long written out statement about how this was a witch hunt, from Biden.
Yeah.
And his lawyer had to go, read the statement, read the statement. So he didn't understand the context. So that's concerning, that if he's in a situation where, it's tense negotiations, that he may not be catching the cues. But the thing that's challenging, particularly for Trump, is that, and I'm not going to make a pronouncement here. I would say this is someone that should have geropsych testing, which is like 4 to 5 hours long, because you have to see a decline in function from your previous state. So Rudy Giuliani is an easier one, and I'm actually quite worried about him. Here's a man who in the 90s brought down the mob. I mean, you have to be on the top of your game to do that. And then just a year or two ago, he was having a presidential press conference at the Four Seasons landscaping parking lot. I mean, that's concerning. I really get concerned about him with these, legal cases, that he is not quite understanding everything that's going on. And when someone doesn't understand the implications of an intervention, in this case, the legal issues, then they don't have capacity for that.
When it comes to go back to
is,
something you said about comparing to an earlier baseline.
Yeah.
As a layperson, when I see Trump's speeches from the 2016 campaign and his TV appearances from 2012 and his Letterman appearance from 2005, the dynamicism, the diversity of vocabulary, there's something that seems to be gone from the way that he speaks. I can't discern whether it would be expected based on his age at these different times or whether there's more to it. What do you think?
Well, there can be a diminishment, like Biden is diminished, relative to 20 years ago as well. So I'm not going to, criticize that. What I will say is I watched his campaign rally in Wisconsin or Michigan, and he was saying things like, hey, I'm only using the teleprompter 8% of the time, and 92% of the time I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what is that about? I mean, a regular candidate would not. And the other thing about Trump is whatever he's feeling or worried about tends to come out in his speech. And so one of the frontal lobe tasks is it has your reasoning, it has your social filters, so it keeps you from saying things you really shouldn't say.
So this is like an inhibition mechanism of sorts.
Exactly, right. So he's lost some of his inhibitions.
Dr. Liz, you said you wanted to mention something also about RFK Jr. because and
Yes.
he's not getting as much attention as far as this sort of stuff goes. What's your impression?
Well, so as I said, I particularly look at function. What did Trump do during his presidency? What did Biden do during his presidency? Although these days, I've got to say that the news media has really made things problematic in that, like with Trump, buried Ivana in his golf course. And I looked it up. And in New Jersey, a cemetery is exempt from judicial seizure. So, I talked to someone who watches Fox News all the time, and he's like, that didn't happen. I was like, no, look. So I think that our country is kind of in silos, which is definitely a problem. RFK, he doesn't have, any experience running any big things. This whole question of having a dead worm in his brain, that's usually cysticercosis, and that causes inflammation. And also, he was shooting drugs as a kid, and he got hepatitis C. So that causes scarring. All of dementia is scarring, and mainly it can't be cured, no matter what the MD gurus say, but you can do things to decrease how fast it will progress. And RFK said in the 2012 deposition that he had memory loss, long-term, short-term, and he couldn't work as much.
Mm,
But now he's saying that he's all better.
right.
So that's not how it works. It's kind of like a heart attack. You get, damage to the brain, whether it's from strokes or Alzheimer's or alcohol or head injuries, or
So if I
infections.
understand correctly, you're saying that whatever damage, whatever symptoms he was experiencing from that at the time, these would be sort of permanent changes to the brain.
Yes. So the inflammation from hepatitis C it's an inflammatory process in the whole body. It can cause changes in the nerves, the brain, particularly the liver, and the cysticercosis. So it looks like there's some scarring definitely in one part of his brain, and that part is just going to stay scarred. I mean, if they treated him with antibiotics, it's going to keep him from getting new infections in his brain,
Right.
and so it may just be stable, but that it's not likely. It would be extremely unusual that if he had cognitive problems and couldn't work very much and earn a living in 2012, that all of a sudden he would be better. I mean, now he's also saying that Ukraine needs to be denazified. Like, where is that coming from? It's a very strange year.
It is a very strange year, that is for sure. We've been speaking with Dr. Elizabeth Landsverk, a dementia and Alzheimer's disease expert. Dr. Liz, really appreciate your time and insights today.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the work you're doing.